Hi, I'm Aunt Nell, and I have a story for you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Rea, a John Maxwell Certified Leadership Coach. Welcome to Life, Love, and Leadership, where we discuss everything pertaining to life, love, and leadership. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Life, Love, and Leadership. I'm Tom Rea, and this is presented by the Real Leadership Company. Today's episode is going to be special. It's going to feature, let me start with this. I like to begin every episode with an attitude of gratitude. And today I am thankful for my mom. Yeah, my mom, my mother. Mother's Day is coming up in the next couple of weeks. And we just celebrated Easter. And so I'm going to do a special podcast today featuring a story by my mom called An Easter Story. It's an original story that she shared, she created, and her and I got together back several years ago and recorded this, and I added sound effects and things of that nature just to make the experience a little more enjoyable. But my mom, she had a great ability to come up with stories on the fly. In fact, she dressed up like sort of like an Amish person in that kind of garb, and called herself Aunt Nell. And Aunt Nell would go to schools and churches, and she would read from her book of magic, she called it, or perhaps the magic storybook. And the reason why it was magic is because when you opened it up, all the pages were blank, but she would read from it as if there was actual words inside the book. And what it was, she was just sharing the stories that God had given her from memory. And it was just some great stuff, great content. And because we're around the Easter holiday and approaching Mother's Day soon, I wanted to honor my mama. Her name is Juanita Rea. And she went home to be with the Lord in 2011 after battling breast cancer. Now, my mom, she was a pretty amazing person, and I want to share with you about her just for a minute before I play this audio story. But she was just a trooper. She was diagnosed about 10 years earlier with 4-stage breast cancer. And she didn't allow grass to grow under her feet. She was always moving and shaking. She was amazing. She ended up moving to Tennessee, Sevierville, Tennessee, as a matter of fact, to live at the Church of God Widow Center. And there she really launched a lot of ministry that she did over the next several years of her life. Now, she had been the wife of a pastor, and she had taught Sunday school and even taught in a Christian school growing up. So she had not been a stranger to those things, but during her last 10 years of her life, she went on several missions trips to Guatemala and Honduras and even New Orleans just after Katrina hit, and offered aid and lunches and things of that nature. One gentleman who was running the show as far as booking the trips for missions, he shared with me one day on how much he admired my mom for having this inner strength to continue to forge ahead, even when those who were full of vitality were struggling. And my mom was having a challenge with this bout with cancer that she was dealing with. And fast forward, when my brother-in-law and I went to pick her up to bring her home to live at my wife and my house during her last year of her life, one lady said about her, you know what, Juanita would would take chemo and go on a mission trips for 3 weeks and then come back and take chemo and then leave again on another missions trip for 3 weeks and come back and take chemo. And she said, and one day she came back and took chemo, and that very day she was in the soup kitchen passing out lunches. So I am really thankful for my mom. She was my number one fan. She loved me with all of her heart. In fact, when I was born, my dad said, honey, if you give me a boy, I'll fill your hospital room with flowers. And she gave him a boy, me, ta-da, and he filled her room with flowers. So I hope you can tell by everything I've just shared with you on how much I loved and appreciated my mom and the prayers that she poured into me, and the just being there to be my encourager and my support through all the years. And so now let's take a listen to my mom sharing a very special story that she wrote titled The Easter Story.
This Aunt Nell story is called An Easter Story. Sue, Ellen, and Margie hurried to their locker to exchange books for their next class. The halls were busy with excitement now, for in just a couple hours everyone would be off on their Easter vacation. Ellen turned to Sue and she said, Sue, what you gonna be doing for Easter? Oh, Sue said, we're going to Grandpa and Grandma's, but that's not the best part. The best part is my new dress. You know that blue dress in Mason's department store window downtown? Well, my mama bought me that dress and I'm going to get to wear it. Oh, yes, said Ellen, I know the dress you're talking about, and it is beautiful. Then she turned to Margie and said, how about you, Margie? What are you going to be doing? Margie said, well, we're going to my aunt and uncle's farm. And you know, after dinner, my cousins and me, we always like to go out and play in the hay in the barn. Oh, that does sound like fun, said Ellen. And then Margie said, well, how about you, Ellen? What you going to be doing? And Ellen said, well, we're not going anyplace, and I don't have a new dress or anything. But you know what? The doctor said my daddy would be well enough to be walking around by Easter Sunday morning. Well, just then the bell rang and the girls had to hurry off to their class. Sue and Margie walked together now since they had the same science class this hour. And Margie said, oh, I'm so sorry I brought it up about going to my Aunt and Uncle's farm. And Sue said, yeah, I'm sorry I brought it up about my new dress too. I forgot about Ellen's daddy having that accident at work last year. Yeah, but you know what, said Margie? I noticed something, that Ellen's happy no matter what happens. She's just happy all the time anyhow. Yeah, I've noticed that, said Sue. I wonder what that is. Well, the classes got over and everyone went home. And you know what? On Easter Sunday morning, Ellen and her brother and sister were up real early to look for their Easter baskets. Of course, Ellen's little brother was the youngest one in the family, and his basket was kind of easy to find. It was next to the couch. Then her little sister found hers next, and it was under the desk. It took Ellen quite a while to find hers, but she finally did. It was in the closet behind the sewing basket. After they'd looked in their baskets and found out what they had, they went to the kitchen table for breakfast. And you know what? Just like every Easter morning, there were those hot cross buns that Mama made. She always made hot cross buns, no matter what happened to the family. And then they all went to their rooms and got dressed for church. And you know, the doctor was right. Daddy was well enough to be walking around, really walking around. In fact, he decided to walk to church since it was only 2 blocks away. Ellen and Her little sister and her younger brother walked behind Mama and Daddy. And when they got to church, the message was being content in whatever state you find yourself. And boy, did that ever mean a lot to Ellen's family this year. Because since Daddy's accident last year, they'd had to learn how to do things differently. Mama had to find a job, so that put Ellen in charge of the household, really. She had to take care of her little brother and sister and start supper every night. But they found out they could do it. With God's help, they could do it. And then they went to the beautiful Easter service about how Jesus not only went to the cross for us, but he also rose again, and how beautiful that was. And then after church, they went home, and they had a beautiful Easter dinner of ham and mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes and corn and green beans and pumpkin pie for dessert. It was a wonderful day.
Well, I hope that you're enjoying the story so far. This is the Easter story written by my mom, Juanita Rea, and it just brings back so many memories to hear this story again, because I got to hear it when it was original back in the day. In the probably the early 70s, if not into the 80s, she was writing these stories. And what's funny, a quick story before we continue. Mom, if there was chaos going on, us kids were fighting each other and clawing each other and acting like crazy kids. Mom, when she got the inspiration to write a story, she would just leave and go off into the bedroom, close the door, and press record on the tape recorder, and she would just begin to record the story that she was getting downloaded from God. And so have so many great memories of that, and I was just glad that I was able to capture this so that you could hear it. So let's get back to it. The Easter Story by Juanita Rea.
When school started again, well, Sue, Ellen, and Margie were back at their locker exchanging books for their next class. And you know what? Ellen said, "Hey, Margie, did you get to go to your aunt and uncle's farm and play in the hay?" "Oh," said Margie. "Oh, we went there all right. But you know what? It rained all day. In fact, it rained so hard that we couldn't even get out to the barn to play in the hay. And we had to sit in the house and listen to the adults talking about their problems." "Oh," said Ellen, "I'm sorry that you had a bad day." And she said, "Well, what about you, Sue? Did you go to your grandpa and grandma's, and did you get to wear your new dress?" "Oh, yeah," said Sue. "We went to grandpa and grandma's all right, and I got to wear my new dress. But my grandma's dog jumped up and tore my dress in such a way that it can never be fixed. I had a miserable day." "Oh," said Ellen, "that's too bad." But Sue said, "You know, I've noticed something. Ellen, it doesn't seem to matter what happens to you. You're just happy all the time anyhow. What is that?" And Ellen said, "Oh, that's Jesus in me. It doesn't matter what happens, because I know Jesus is going to take care of me no matter what." "Well," said Margie, "I've been thinking about it, and you've been asking and asking us to come to church with you." And she said, "You know what? I will come to church with you next Sunday, because I've got to find out what it is that makes you so happy all the time, no matter what happens." And Sue said, "Yeah, me too. I'm going to come with you too." You know what? Why don't you just ask somebody to come to church with you? Invite somebody. And if they say no the first time, keep asking. And maybe they might even say, "I'm going to go just so you won't have to ask me anymore." But you know what? That might be their special day. That might be the day that they get saved. Oh boy, and it would be so wonderful. Don't forget that Jesus loves you, and he loves them too. and let them find out. Help them and bring them to church. Amen. Well, I gotta go now. Goodbye.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Life, Love, and Leadership featuring my mom, Juanita Rea, sharing her story, her original story, the Easter story. And perhaps it's brought back some memories for you and your childhood. Perhaps your mother used to hide Easter baskets for you, or whatever the case may be. But if it's been a blessing to you and if you've got something out of it, please tell me about it. Send me an email at tom@𝑺𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒊𝒃𝒆. That's tom@𝑺𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒊𝒃𝒆. And I have a favor for you. Please subscribe to this podcast, whether on YouTube or on our podcast channel. These podcasts are available on all podcast platforms, but you can reach it by going to realleadershipcompany.com/podcast. realleadershipcompany.com/podcast. And there you can subscribe and be alerted every time we go live. Thank you for tuning in, and happy Easter, and coming up, happy Mother's Day. Take care, and thank you for listening to Life, Love, and Leadership.
Bless you. See you later. Bye-bye.